Welcome to the Grow and Expand with Ace podcast, where we break through limitations, we heal from within, and we step into collectively our highest timeline, our highest life, where we're the most fulfilled and happy. Thank you so much for joining me today on today's episode, which is going to be about the knowing versus the fear. This is such an important piece in any personal development journey because whenever we operate from the knowing, things become effortless, things fall into place, we create from inflow, and whenever we operate from the fear, things become constrictive, things become overwhelming, we push and we grind and we control and we orchestrate and we manipulate, and you can feel that in your chest, right? Like it's constrictive. And so you'll walk the road no matter what, but how you walk the road and how easy or difficult and how enjoyable or painful will depend on this piece that we're talking about today, the knowing versus the fear. So what's the knowing? So the knowing is the term that I describe for the deep knowings that we, each and every one of us have, and you have inside of you on certain topics or certain things or certain ways of being. The knowing can also be referred to as inner wisdom. It can be referred to as guidance, downloads, drop-ins. It can be referred to as intuition. It doesn't really matter the word that you put to it. The knowing is something where in your heart and in your body, you know. You do know. There's a moment in time, however long it goes for, that you know. Then comes the fear, which is the mind. So this is an easy way to distinguish the two. The knowing is the heart and the body, in the chest area, the heart chakra. The fear is the mind. When your mind starts questioning, analyzing, figuring out, controlling, predicting, whatever the mind does. And it never goes towards love and light and hope and expansiveness, because if it does, it's the heart and the knowing, not the mind. The mind goes towards predictability, assessing and calculations of risk, keeping you safe, okay? But the safety piece we'll get to, it's disproportionate. The way in which your mind tries to keep you safe is disproportionate to the threat you're actually under. And so before you know it, that expansive knowing is gone. Like you cannot find it. And your body is instead flooded with fear and with overwhelm and with anxiety and anxiousness, and it almost burns, right? And so when we operate from our knowings, it is our internal system literally showing us and talking to us and guiding us to the road ahead that's the most in alignment with our true heart and soul desires. It's either in alignment with our true heart and soul desires for what we want and crave, or it's the knowing that whatever situation or environment we're in, it is not in alignment with what we want, desire, and crave. Okay, so the knowing could be a pull towards something greater, bigger, more joyful, fulfilling, loving, expansive, or it's a knowing that, and a clarity, or a lack of clarity, I suppose, potentially you don't have that vision. But it's the sort of flooding of your body with where we're in now is out of alignment. I am out of alignment. So whatever that alignment is, I'm out. I'm not there. Get away. Move. And if you tune in, it will tell you where to move to every time. And it'll tell you the most aligned and the most in flow So the quickest and the easiest, right? And then talking about the fear for a second, the psychology behind fear is obviously as human beings, we evolve. To evolve, we have to survive. And so our number one kind of programming is around survival. We need to survive. And so I often have this debate with people around me. And to be honest, I have not met one person yet who's agreed with me. I've had people who I could see heard it and was going to contemplate it later, but no one has just wholeheartedly said, yep. And I could see and with their energy believe that they got it and believed it and also agreed. That was also their truth in that moment. But the real question, I suppose, for me at one stage was, would I rather survive and be unhappy as fuck for whatever period I am surviving in? Or do I want to thrive and live and enjoy and have that be shorter? Potentially, the risk is ultimately that's shorter. That's the ultimate risk that no one can know or quantify or guarantee. And my answer every single time is, what the fuck is the point of living for 80 years if you're miserable in pain and it's shit? And potentially that's a reflection of just how shit it was for me, which is why I ultimately went, no, I would rather it's shorter and experience the glory. And like I said, no, I haven't met someone who's just like, oh yeah. And why is that? Because we are all engineered to survive. We are hardwired to survive. But it is my theory and my belief, my view, that the genetic makeup, the science, whatever you want to call it, science, that we are hardwired with to survive, served for a very long and lengthy period of time to get us to where we are today, which is the human being species up to exactly where we are today. Exactly where we are. But that moving forward, we as a collective and as a society must choose, and that's my belief, that we must choose thriving, happiness, connection with those that we love, more feel-good moments than overwhelm, more love than hate and division and toxicity, more collaboration over disconnect and wars. We must choose abundance. The next phase in evolution, if you'd like, must be choosing abundance and peace and love and thriving over the fear that keeps us in exactly the world we are today. And now whether you look at the world and acknowledge the state that it's in fully is a question for you, but I did, and that is my belief. And it's that conceptual belief that then allowed me to internalize that and do that for myself. So I had to then, obviously in that process, decide, well, I'm a leader, natural born leader in me, my genetic makeup. One of my core values is being the change you want to see. I will not ask of anybody what I don't do and practice. I probably won't ask that of anybody. I believe fundamentally, to speak truth, I have to be the change I want to see. And so then when I was grappled with this question of the fear that kept me stuck for a very long period of time, I had to make a decision around, am I going to continue to choose fear, which I know is rooted in survival, over the knowing inside of me that is pulling me towards something so much greater, love. And evidently, I made my decision. And every decision that I made was almost myself asking this question. It was this question. It was, something's come up. This is how I want to react. Is that a fear-based response? Or is that a love, abundance response? And as I embodied this principle in everything I did, my life transformed from the inside first to the outer, right? And so I have never believed that statement that I said at the start to be more true than I do today, because I haven't died. I could have died at any given point in time anyway. Like, we think we can control survival, but we can't. You can't control when a car accident or anything will happen to anybody, including yourself, and we can't control when a meteor hits the earth. The only question we've got is, what was the quality of that for me, for my immediate family, for my society, and for the world as a whole? And is where we are something I'm proud of leaving behind for others? Is where we are something I would rave about and speak positively about and share with the world and say, hey, change absolutely how you're doing things to this way because it works? Or is it fucking shit? Okay? And I'm looking at wars, and I'm looking at how people divide, and I'm looking at how we hurt each other and how we tear each other apart. And I'm looking at how parents hurt their children, their innocent, helpless children. And I'm going, it's shit. So that's where I'm putting my money. Or really, I'm putting my money in my own inner knowing that there is greater and better and more abundance. And that's what I'm seeking and how I'm living my life. And when I did, and I used these two principles, they were so powerful and phenomenal that obviously I got to where I am now. And now I use those principles, those inner knowings. They always know it's something greater. Like, we do not understand everything. We are limited in what we can understand. Full stop. And nothing rings truer when I say it today, because 5 years ago, I didn't understand anything I understand today. So I know there's so much more that I don't understand, but I know there's more, and I can accept that. Even though I was a very religious, traditional, conservative, corporate-wired girl, I've always known that. That's why when you look at children and how they move and the wisdoms that just comes out of them, it doesn't even look like wisdoms. It's just their truth. And it is, by and large. You can tell when it's the ego operating or the conditioning operating, and when it's just those innate truths, or whether it's the hurt and pain operating or the truth. And so the knowing, if you're on a journey of personal growth and expansion, if you're on a journey of personal development, if you're on a journey of manifestation, if you're on any soul-led type of journey, the principle following the knowing, recognizing the knowing, and honoring the knowing and choosing the knowing over the fear is the way to go. It is the way to go. Because the fear will present itself so much more amplified. It will almost feel like we are in World War III when you are encountered with a rejection, say, or a conflict with someone you love. It'll feel like you're under gunfire attack because the fear is trying to keep you safe to survive. But in reality, you're not under a gunfire attack. You're having a conversation with someone and you have different perspectives, and that's okay. And they can have their truth and you can have your truth, and no one really knows the ultimate fucking truth. And like, the acknowledgement lies in both people at that stage has different truths. That's it. And then from that space, maybe if you hear from that space, there's middle ground. Perhaps there's a new perception you can have. Perhaps there's a new perception they get. Okay, but the fear will want you to armor up. It will want you to attack if you're an attacker like I was. Still am. Right? Still a part of me. Just built a relationship with that part. That part now knows when and how to show up in a constructive way. And so fear will have us believe that the potential threat is so much greater than it is. Because you want to see fear from survival truly operating in a moment. Watch when you're nearly in a car accident and your fucking reflexes kick in and you stop. Like, you weren't in your mind calculating out how you were going to stop and avoid the accident. Like, fear just, like, the fear that protects like that just is. And so what I'm hoping to give to the listeners today who is on this soul path or on this growth and expansion path is the key couple of ways to kind of know when you're operating in the knowing and when you're operating in the fear. I hope that the message I've given up to now shows you that when you follow your own inner knowing, it can never be wrong. It might not be the final destination, but it's the best path for you towards the final destination. It doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you're some untouchable being. It is the quickest road for your soul and blueprint and heart and where you want to head and your desires and wants and purpose, if you like. It's the quickest way there, the path of least resistance that will unfold all the rest in a way that I can't explain to you. You got to do it. The only way to it is through it. You know, I'll never forget when my father and I were semi-estranged his last sort of 3 years on planet Earth. There had been some critical kind of experiences that happened in my family home, which I won't go into out of respect for my mother and family. And it was just, I had always known as a child something was off, and the behavior and the way that the fear and the wrath and because he was narcissistic and abusive, physically and emotionally. And like, I'd always known it wasn't right. But obviously when I spoke it as a kid, it got quashed. And then, you know, once I'd kind of worked through all of that, obviously at this stage, I had developed that knowing in me long enough. And the event was obviously also just evident enough, like that you couldn't gaslight your own knowing anymore. You kind of had to come face to face with it and go, my knowing all these years, even though I didn't want it to be right, even though I craved for it to be wrong, even though I so badly wanted what I wanted, it wasn't. And that's okay. And so anyways, we were pretty much estranged for the last 3 years. And, you know, maybe a text here or a text there that would just really affirm for me that toxicity. And so then again, radio silence and estrangedness. And then what happened is, probably like, can't remember the year now, it's irrelevant. There was a point in time where the family notified us that he was in hospital because he was an alcoholic and he had drunk too much. And what do you call it? Like, you basically die because you drink too much. There's a technical word for it. There's a medical word for it. I'm mind blanking at the moment. And so the liver failure. And anyways, so then like, when I obviously reached out, I absolutely reached out to my brother, to my father. When he got out of hospital, we spoke and he assured me he was fine. I spoke to him on video. He assured me he was fine. Every fucking person around me behaved like it was fine. Everyone's like, it's fine. He says it's fine, it's fine. And I knew it wasn't fine. I knew it was not fine. But my brother's in Pretoria, my dad's somewhere not there, like 6 hours away or whatever. I'm thinking my knowing is he's not fine. At this stage, I don't think I'd said the word death in my mind. But my brother's not making the trip. My brother's the one that's there who still has the relationship with my dad. I'm speaking to my grandmother. She says he's fine. All the external evidence is mirroring at me. It's fine. And so like, quash that inner knowing, talk that inner knowing away. Oh, Sharné, you're paranoid. You know, you have anxiety. You know, you have hypochondriac, like whatever, like so bad. The worst gaslighting is the one you do to yourself. You know, only once you stop doing that will you stop others from doing that to you, stop allowing them to do it to you. And I'll never forget, we went on, I didn't speak to my dad again. It maybe like 2-3 weeks passed. Can't remember the exact timeline. And I didn't speak to him again after that kind of initial phase where I'm like reaching out, knowing it's not fine, but everyone's saying it's fine. So now I've gaslit myself into it's fine. And I was on holidays with my husband and my kids and my parents-in-law. And one night I woke up. So like I'm sleeping. This is the first time I've had that experience. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I 100% knew he was dying. 100%. I knew it. I knew he was dying. So how? I can't tell you. I don't know. It's not something I can explain, but I trust what I knew because I knew. And so I walked out of the room. My husband was sleeping. I sat down on the couch and I cried. The first thing I did was I broke down and I cried because I knew he was dying. I knew it. And when I finished crying, once I've kind of cried, like my natural reaction in any scenario is to fix it, to be the protector and to be the savior. Okay, like that's my kind of operating mode. And particularly back then when I didn't learn to hone it in a healthy way. So the first thing I did was called my grandmother and speak to my grandmother. And she was like, oh, no, he's fine. And I was like, okay, can you put him on? Like, I'm like, I know he's not fine. Put him on the phone. She walks down the fucking stairs. She gives him the phone. So she's looking at him, right? She's looking at him. She's there. She's saying he's fine. She gives him the phone. And he can't talk to me. His words, he's slurring, he's slowing down. He can't talk. So now I'm like, external evidence, he's not fine. And I don't know what my grandma's on, but it ain't the truth. Full stop. And so we couldn't even finish the conversation. Like, I remembered, like, and I'm getting panicked, right? That little girl in me is getting panicked, and I'm trying everything. I'm getting quiet at him. Quiet is an Afrikaans word, like cranky, but he can't. He can't talk because he's that far in liver failure that he's fucked. And so I hang the phone up and I call my auntie, and I'm like, this is where I have this beautiful part of me. She's my absolute favorite. It's like, you have pushed me to my limit. And I come out like the fucking tornado, hurricane, whatever you want to call her, and I'll wipe it all fucking down. Like, I'll wipe it down if I need to. And so I said to her, and she goes, he's fine. And I said to her, he's not fine. Call an ambulance, and I want an ambulance there now. And when I speak with authority like that, or anger like that, or I don't know, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it's that hurricane, Sharné, people listen. And so, okay, I'll do it. They can just check on him, blah, blah, blah. And anyways, I called my brother. I told him. He flew over. I immediately arranged flights with my baby sister. We all flew back home, and it wasn't a week later, and my dad had passed away. And, you know, whenever I wonder whether it's my knowing inside or the fear that my mind's trying to tell me to believe something else, I can anchor back in that moment, and energetically, I immediately know which one I'm operating from and which choice I'm making and which way is the right way. Now, I appreciate that not all of the listeners is going to have a moment like that, but some of you will. And that's the easiest and quickest way to find a moment where you knew and then you followed it through and the external evidence supported it, because now we're satisfying both knowing, heart and mind, to anchor into that energy of what the knowing felt like, to anchor into the energy of what the fear and doubt then sounded like. Because don't you think for a moment that up to my getting on an airplane here, up to my dad's last breath, like it was, we were there, it was his last breath, my mind and hope was telling me, maybe he'll make it. Maybe he'll make it. And even though I knew there's no way, the mind, from a fear of trying to protect you from experiencing the pain of what's unfolding, will go. And so I can anchor into how that went for me and which energetic sort of field and where I'm operating at, and then where the knowing was. And that's easy for me now. Like that, I was lucky to have that anchor. So if you can think of a time for yourself where you've had that, that is absolutely the place I invite you to find the two anchors in. The fear, the doubt, this, you know, the self-story, self-sabotage, whatever you want to call it, and the knowing. And then use that. So in this moment, which one am I more in? And you don't have to be 100% right in the middle of the line. It's like, if I had to put money on it, which one am I putting money on? Like, am I putting money on that I'm in the fear, or am I putting money on that I'm in the knowing? And you kind of just go. As you go, you'll learn. Sometimes you'll be right. Sometimes you'll be wrong. You'll build the muscle. You learn it's okay, even if you got it wrong, and life moves on. And before you know it, you're in flow and everything's working out. And even the things that's not working out, you've got the skills and the resilience to survive through. The other way of looking at it that's really helped me in business, because when it comes to business, it's a bit of a different field to personal healing. Like, it's a different element. And so when it comes to business and working with my knowings definitely isn't as strong as obviously my personal ones. Like, I'd been in scenarios where I'm in an environment where there's definitely ick energy from people around me. And like my knowing, that's quite easy then to go, not right. Now I know, is it this one? It's the knowing, and I go. Or I take my children and we leave. Or I don't reconnect with them, or whatever. The is in work, it doesn't come from that kind of energetic space for me. So I found it hard to distinguish because I'm an entrepreneur, I own my own business. And so I knew following your knowing is the quickest path to getting that vision that you have and that soul desire and those wants and those needs and those desires met. But I didn't know kind of how to follow that knowing and that trail. But then when I discovered this piece of sort of the energetic side of work, that really helped me. And so I want to pass that on to you. That is, does it feel constrictive or expansive? And you don't just decide it in the moment. You can. Sometimes it's so obvious that you're like, okay, cool, that's constrictive. Put it to the side. Sometimes it's like this idea comes in and it's so expansive and I'm like, yeah, great, that's the one. You know, like that's a really cool one that I use in business. But sometimes the decisions we make, sometimes we're just not in the right energy or we're just not in the right moment. And so then it's about going right now, is it expansive? No, it is not expansive. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to walk away and step away, or I might continue on down this path and I'm going to keep reassessing. Is it just me today? That's not expansive no matter what. Like we get those days, we get those weeks, we get those months. Or is it literally how I'm creating, how I'm expressing, how I'm showing up, how I am running my business? That's not, right? And it's not about not running a business. It's about how not to run your business. Running it from constrictive energy is not a vibe for me. I follow my knowing and I'm getting amazing transformational results like this as a result of it. And so then it's about clocking it. And then as you move through, if the constriction stays, that is you're operating from here and you're letting fear and doubt and limiting beliefs in the way. And even if the product might be a game changer, how you're executing it is from that energetic field. So it's not going to work in the way. That's the path to least resistance, most in flow, most impactful and expansive and feel good. And so then you can obviously play around with different ways and different alternatives until you find that heart space expansiveness, that heart space kind of bit. And then you know, that's the knowing. And so that's a cool other way to kind of go about it. The other way where knowings and fears really plays in is toxic relationships. Like the person in a toxic relationship, even if they are toxic themselves, because guaranteed if you're in a toxic relationship, you're toxic yourself. I don't think toxic is a bad word. It describes practices in a way of showing up that doesn't serve and is not in alignment with love, the true meaning of love. And so we all have that in us at different times, different ratios and different volumes. But even if you are, it doesn't mean now you give permission for someone else to be. And equally, don't give yourself that permission, not just because you are, I can be, right? Like, no, we're all obviously aiming in this world for love and connection and healing and peace and expansiveness and joy and happiness. And so let's just keep our eye on the fucking prize. But in a toxic relationship, you'll know long before you'll decide that it isn't your highest good. It isn't your most expansive journey. It isn't fulfilling your needs, wants, and desires and heart and soul's blueprint. Like you'll know long before you ever make the decision to the contrary, if at all. You might never make that decision. That's okay too. But if you want to and you're in a relationship or relationships, it obviously doesn't just apply to your partner. It applies to your parents. It applies to extended family. It applies to sisters, brothers. It applies to friendships. It applies to uncles, aunties, cousins, whoever. And it really applies to careers because there's a lot of toxic work environments out there. The number one sign of a toxic work environment is it'll tell you how fucking great it is. Someone who's great doesn't have to tell you. Okay? Energy never lies. The knowing never lies. So if you're in an environment that's toxic, you'll know. Your mind will think, is it me? I couldn't make that work. I couldn't do this. They're saying this to me. They're in leadership positions. They seem to have gotten so much in life because they read, blah, blah, blah. No. Fear, fear, fear. Psh. Cut it down. Your heart, your soul, and who you are as a person is not to be validated. It's not up for negotiation. You do not have to overextend and explain for other people to try and make yourself fit in, and you won't be able to do it in those environments ever. You are feeling something, you're feeling a knowing, and it is your birthright to follow it. And it's your road to your most expansive self, for sure. And your growth will just catapult. And so I'm hoping that today you've gotten that distinction, because it's such a powerful distinction, and it can speed things up, and it can make it feel so much funner and lighter and easier and seamless. So I'll leave you with that today. And just a reminder that if this resonated for you, and if you can feel that, in your soul, either the knowing and the fear, or just the spark that you're going to go away and obviously start playing around with this powerful concept, then I would love for you to like this podcast. The more people that like it, the more we spread the word, the more people can hear it and choose for themselves how it is that they want to move through life and how they want to show up for them and themselves and their families. So thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast with Grow and Expand with S. It was such a pleasure. And I hope everyone has a beautiful, wonderful week ahead, and I'll catch you in the next episode. All my love, S.